In space, there is no daylight.
Well, technically, no. I mean, the sun is a star, right? And there's like billions of stars in space, so yeah, I've not even started making fun of today's B-movie, yet here I am overthinking the tagline.
Remember Dracula 2000? For the unfamiliar, it was a Wes Craven-produced horror film from, as the title suggests, the year 2000. A modern Dracula for the modern age. In concept, it was pretty great, but in execution, it was, well, there's no way around it, it was kind of eh. Not good, not bad, just middling.
Why, oh why, am I waffling on about Dracula 2000? You can read, clearly this video, see up there, is about Dracula 3000, the B film. Well, there's a good reason why. Like many B films of this nature, it tried to have a similar enough name so it could leech off the fame of the bigger production.
But instead of Louisiana, this bad boy is set in space! And, you know, it has Casper Van Dien, so score.
And hey, I love both sci-fi and horror films. Plus, I do adore Casper Van Dien in Starship Troopers. So maybe we can have some fun here. Maybe there's a gleaming nugget of, you know, goodness somewhere buried within. Okay, full disclosure, it's terrible. There's nothing redeeming about this film. But it is rather silly and a little bit fun.
And just to set the mood, here's the DVD menu. Take in that silent, still scene. Breathe it in. Okay, enough nonsense, let's get on with the show. After a rather long credit roll, which shows that, yep, this film was a massive German/United States joint production tax dodge, there's a cheap, very overacted teaser for what's to come.
Ah, yes, poorly made crucifixes by men wearing chef jackets. Totally my aesthetic.
Okay, it's time to meet our main cast. All aboard the... Wait, what?
Whoa, hold up, pause button. Too soon.
So, you know how most films do like an establishing scene to get the character introductions out of the way?
Simply, flash forward 50 years to some surprisingly decent space CGI for something on a shoestring budget, and have the main character give an in-depth biography of each crew member.
This is the smartest guy on the crew. We call him the Professor. And we'd be in good hands if he knew half as much as he thinks he does.
It's so heavy-handed and unnecessary, and completely circumvents the point of writing. Why waste time getting attached to these characters if we're just gonna kill them off? You know, in actuality, it's actually genius. You've completely eradicated the need to actually, you know, do your job. It's amazing.
For the 3 people out there who don't understand sarcasm, please don't do this. What you want to do in a good story is develop attachment to the characters and raise the stakes, pun intended. What you've got here is a script which has boiled everything down to mere mechanisms.
Well, these Burks have found a floating cargo ship and have decided to go aboard and look, since, under intergalactic salvage laws, anything they find is theirs for the taking. And holy fuck, dude, zoom the camera back! That's a bit closer to Casper Van Dien and the quote-unquote professor than I'd ever like to be, thank you very much. On board the floating wreck, the navigator, in what is actually quite a nice opening shot, investigates the eerie gloom, only for it to be ruined with more terrible way too close to someone's face shots.
And that's the big sin of this picture. For every good idea it has, it completely ruins it with sheer incompetence about 2 seconds later.
Whoa, it's foreshadowing time. And because this film was written by a chimpanzee on cocaine, this black shadow is followed by our navigator, whose name is actually Mina, freaking out and running around in an awfully short chase sequence. Oh noes! She's gone silent, and the far too close to the camera duo are panicking and trying to work out why they can't hear her. until...
You okay, little girl?
Well, that wasn't exactly friendly. This grinning, laughing buffoon is Humvee. And yes, that is the dude from the Dark Knight's ferry scene. Small world, eh? Only, you know, here, instead of somber and thoughtful, he does shit like this.
Hey! None of that, mister. Didn't your mother teach you any manners?
Now that we know the ship is safe, aboard comes our crew, led by Captain, I shit you not, this is the character's actual name, Captain Van Helsing.
I want to repeat that out loud. Space Captain Van Helsing. Even in your wildest sci-fi role-playing fantasies, I bet you never came up with anything quite that badass.
He scolds Mr. Grabby, and then all but one of the other idiots come aboard. Professor, complete with his wheelchair, and blonde McCann's Vice Captain Aurora. But before we get to meet the final twit, it's time for a little more 50-year prior suspense from the former captain. TLDR, he's lost control of the ship and the crew are hit with a mysterious chronic virus. Unlike the next guy, who's just straight chronic.
This is 187, portrayed by artist Leon Ivey Jr., aka Coolio. Yeah, the 90s gangster rapper. Right down to that weird like braided mohawk thing he did for a bit there.
Of course, he's the token idiot member of the crew and too stoned off his ass to get aboard the wreck until yelled at over comms. Also, PS, he can't act casual for shit, but more on that later.
Hello? Aren't we forgetting something? Thanks.
Okay, writers, please stop it now. His character is clearly, you know, your Franklin. You can just kind of give it a rest.
The crew get to work, trying to get the derelict back online, only for Coolio to burst in with some rather startling news. He's found a dead body, so it's time to delegate an investigative party. B-movie style.
You two, come with me.
Hey, Cap, I thought you said we could...
Hey, Hummer?
Yes, boss.
I put up with your shit because you're big, black, and ugly.
Here we go again.
But one of these days, I'd love it if you just learned to take an order and shut the fuck up.
What? We are 17 and a half minutes in. How am I gonna make it without busting my guts? Fucking...
Some more surprisingly well-lit corridor scenes and more 50-year since dead German captain exposition later, the nitwits find... Wait, is this the same dude? Hold the fuck up. Short hair. Long hair. Short hair. Long hair. Oh, you get the sodding point. While Professor and Mina tinker with the light system, Cap, Humvee, Aura and 187 notice the missing member of ZZ Top is holding...
A metal plus sign. Okay. This dude was into mathematics. That explains everything.
What the actual fuck? Please tell me somebody actually wrote that and that it wasn't improvised, because that is just too good.
Naturally, we get to an awkward moment with the crew talking about what it actually is. A crucifix. It turns out that everyone is a raging atheist in the future, with this gem right out of a Kirk Cameron TV special.
Who's God?
Nobody.
The Room? Get that weak shit out of my face. Bademic? Please. Dracula 3000 has been non-stop, unintentionally hilarious gags so far, and we've not even seen a goddamn vampire yet.
After bickering about the potential price the ship could get the gang, and also apparently about quarantine, 187 and Humvee are sent to investigate the cargo hold. because that shouldn't be the first thing you investigate when you diddle about on a ghost ship. Meanwhile, the first of many spooky scary goings-on goes down. And I don't mean the randomly placed hammer and sickle. Mother 3 has apparently undocked by herself and flown off. Also, believe it or not, the Professor is actually talking here. Did they just not like his mouth or something?
Just imagine if I shot the rest of this video like this. Yeah, keep that shit nice and framed, camera lady, we're gonna win an Oscar.
Hoping to find some valuables, 187 and Humvee stumble upon the cargo hold, only for it to be full of coffins.
Dun dun dun!
After finding a rather well-placed crowbar, 187 decides to crack open a coffin to see if anything is being smuggled inside. And the dumbass cuts himself on a blunt crowbar. How do you do that exactly? Well, yeah, sure, sticking your hand in the sand there will solve that right up, no problem. After Humvee promptly opens another, they discover more sand. He splits, leaving 187 to drop blood on the blatantly obvious human ashes. The only way this could get any better would be if, there we go. Captain Van Helsing finds the captain's quarters and all the crucifixes from Salisbury Cathedral, along with, one last blatant tease.
We departed Transylvania Station last night at 2200 hours, and not one moment too soon.
Transylvania.
Okay, from here, it's go time. Let's have some fun on the fun!
Diplomatic problems with the locals.
After leaving the Professor yet again, the rest of the half-wits find Coolio with, "Ew, stop looping that shot, we get it, his leg is broken. You don't need to show the same thing twice. Christ alive, get that man to a pool table so you can all bicker for no reason about who's going to set his leg. And then you can set the damn leg and finally have some idiotic comment about bite marks or something."
What are they?
Well, they aren't flea bites. Well, they are bites.
Bites.
Puncture wounds are definitely teeth.
Oh, well shit, now he's awake. And also resurrected as a vampire. 187 goes goddamn ham sandwiches, and Coolio demonstrates his absolutely brilliant overacting with some amazing slow-mo.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you hit me? You're gonna have to do a whole lot better than that, Captain.
On some level, somebody somewhere wanted this film to be taken seriously. Sadly for them, it is not this level.
Blondie McBigtit shows up and,
Aurora, baby. It's so nice to see you. Did I ever tell you how many times I see you and want to ejaculate all over your bazonkas?
well, this goes on for far, far too long until finally she shoots the Muppet. And of course he's a vampire now, so it does abso-bloody-lutely nothing to the twat. Cue cheaply shot and produced chase scene with dramatic zoom and shaking effect. Yeah, that's my jam.
What the hell is going on? I heard some shooting.
187 went ballistic.
He was out cold.
He tried to kill us.
It's after Aurora. He wants to kill her.
But I believe he wants to titty fuck her first.
Imagine, if you will, that you are an actor and you show up to work one day, you're on a shoot, you've had your coffee, you're reading your newspaper, and you get your script in, and that's your line of fucking dialogue. Poetry! Absolute poetry!
And here we see the famous washed-up gangster rapper speaking in his native tongue.
Think it very sarang du vala le sangue.
Which, finally, leads us to the big man himself, who looks surprisingly traditional, considering, this is set in the year 3000, You could have had a little more fun with the character design, but hey, whatever, just get a cheap outfit from Hot Topic and have him scream at his servant to kill them all whenever you need to, you know, cut the budget a little tiny bit.
Your wish is my command.
Okay, so with all of these terrible internet meme films like Birdemic, which aren't even funny outside of context, why isn't Dracula 3000 considered one of them? I am unapologetically 110% enjoying myself here. I am happy for the first time in my life to qualify a film as so bad it's good.
Enough laughing at this film's shortcomings, it's time to start killing everyone. Or at least give the Count more screen time and, hey! None of that!
Bad touch! Again! Hey, we told off Tiny. Don't make me go Belmont on your Victorian-looking ass!
While Boob Lady gets her neck inspected, our other two idiots bumble until...
Leave her alone! Leave her alone! Leave her alone! Leave her alone!
Ooh, got her! Chalk up another one for the vampires. And almost another one for the other two idiots who almost gun down Mount Chesticles before she can spill the beans as to what they're actually dealing with.
For those interested in keeping time, we are roughly 50 minutes into the 86-minute runtime. And to its credit, it's really not mucking about. There's been so much so far for me to pick apart and just make fun of. It's really quite brisk.
Right after being shot at by Professor Zero Common Sense, the group reconvene and let Aurora, who somehow knows exactly what's going on, spill the beans. Right as the ADR work on the film goes to complete shit and the audio goes out of sync.
Vampires? So what the hell is a vampire?
It's very clear that the dialogue for this scene was recorded in post. That said, it's pretty piss poor and could have been fixed with a few more takes and a bit more touching up. It is just this one scene though, even though it is super irritating because this is kind of, you know, the most important scene in terms of, lore.
She explains the whole 9 yards about vampires. The biting, the blood drinking, turning other people into them, and, oh right, Count Derpface here isn't called Dracula, but instead Orlok. All set next to a Soviet flag for literally no reason. What?
If it was just this scene, you know, I'd accept that they probably got cheap and reused a nuclear submarine set from a Cold War film. But the hammer and sickle appeared on a computer screen earlier. So maybe the director just had a hard-on for, you know, communism, Antifa style.
Okay, so what do we learn that's actually relevant to the plot? Basically, Orlok is hungry, he needs blood to survive, and...
All this blood-sucking stuff, that's some white people shit, right?
You hear that? Vampires are racist as shit. Somebody over at Vice.com needs to write a scathing op-ed about this.
Finally, the guys clue into that Barbie here knows a bit too much for only bumping into the Count, and tie her up, leaving Humvee to guard her as Captain Casper and Wheels go off to do some research on vampires.
Count Dracula, otherwise known as Warlock.
So we should probably address the whole name thing. The character in this film isn't Dracula, it is Count Orlok, which was the name given to the character in the 1920s silent classic Nosferatu. This was done back in the day because the Stoker family still held the rights to Dracula and didn't really want to give them out to a random film company. At the time, film was kind of still a new medium. But this film was made in 2004, you know, we're talking 80 odd years later. So why are we doing the runaround now and calling him Count Orlok? Are you seriously suggesting that this goth store looking reject is the same thing as the Max Schreck character?
Winner winner, chicken dinner. The Professor finally finds the mythical Dr. Van Helsing in the archives and ties it all together. Our captain is a direct descendant and this is likely just a giant revenge situation. Or just coincidence, who knows? Well, we know for a fact that all the characters are dumber than Tila Tequila after a Flat Earth meeting, since Humvee lets Vampy187 into the room and promptly gets his ass kicked. After some more spectacular overacting and the captain crashing the party, somebody finally impales the bastard with...
a pool stick. Unfucking believable.
Finally, with Coolio dead on the floor, they get Tight Tank Top to confess why Orlok didn't bite her. As it turns out, she's not human. She's a what now?
I'm a Proteus 4.
Or, in English, she's a robot sent by the government to keep tabs on these hapless idiots. Vampire Boy didn't turn her because, well, she's got no blood.
So he just spilled the beans and told his entire backstory to some random woman. Okay, I'll buy it, but I just have one really quick but totally legitimate question. Why?
Realising that the pool cue counts as a wooden stake, the new plan comes to fruition. Get some more sticks and drive the ship towards a double sun. Sans the John Williams music. Finally, after much ado about nothing in some rather tedious dialogue, Aura and Van Helsing go on patrol, finding the coffin bay. Prying several duds open for no other reason than to waste runtime, they finally come to Mina, who actually has some half-decent vampire makeup. Impaling her wakes up Orlok, and finally we have the showdown over 1,000 years in the making. Johnny Rico versus a man in a Spencer's outfit. Let's go! Okay, wrap up time. After Humvee won't let Aurora into the safe room, she grabs a crucifix to go after Dracula, only for Humvee to bail out on the good prof since he's being a gigantic baby. Speaking of, guess who's going to be Dracula's next meal? Yeah, you guessed it. He apparently mopped the floor with old Casper, who apparently took some of the vampire acting lesson notes from Coolio.
Hypothetical, what would happen if a vampire drank hydrogen peroxide? Would he kind of, just explode like a tick? Would he just, do nothing because he's a vampire and thus immortal? Or would it be like an extra way to kill the vampire like a wooden stake? Answer in the comments on that one. That's a pretty good brain teaser. That's a chin stroker.
This is a totally acceptable amount of time to get a stake out of someone, right? You shouldn't cut back to the fight here. Oh, cool. And now Mina is back up, but Van Helsing isn't... Wait, I'm questioning a B-movie's logic here, aren't I? I seriously have got to stop doing that. Much like this film has got to stop with the terrible slow-mo. So it's clear that the Professor was a vampire after this, but what if he wasn't? Jesus Christ. Oh, and Daddy's up again. How's the gang gonna get away from him? How are they... Okay, well, I guess, yeah, that works. Unlike these screaming chops.
There's nobody left to pilot the ship, and they're driving straight into a couple of suns. So, how do you end the film?
Well, like this?
I wasn't always a narc, you know.
You weren't?
Not until they upgraded my program.
Upgraded your program?
Before that, I was a Proteus 3.2 PB.
PB?
Pleasure bot.
I've heard of those. I ain't never had enough credits.
Yup, they're gonna bang. Likely while one-armed Dracula watches and gets his rocks off. And speaking of bangs...
No, really. That's it. It's like the writer had to come up with an ending to the film on his way to work that morning. I know. I've said this before about this film. It's so very bad, but at the same time, it's so fucking good.
I'll be honest, I found this film via the IMDb Bottom 100 list, and after watching the trailer, I was instantly laughing at how stupid it looked. As a serious horror film, it fails on literally every single level, and even as a comedy, it falls flat on its face with its one-liners. However, in so many ways, it is unintentionally hilarious with the awful acting, terrible dialogue, poor camera work, and non-existent direction. It is trash, pure and simple, but it's a glorious, beautiful trash fire that is screaming to be riffed on, preferably while drunk.
So looking through my phone here, it's come to my attention that there's been kind of a modern revival of the classic Monster vs. films, focusing mostly on Dracula crossover films. And, oh, that's a good one. Oh, we will see you next episode with that. See you next time.